Hello story lovers, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into a classic tale that asks a timeless question. What is truly valuable? It's a story about a prince, a princess, and a lesson learned the hard way. So get comfortable and let's begin the story of the Swineherd. Once upon a time, in a kingdom not so far away, there lived a prince. He wasn't rich in gold or land, but his heart was full of goodness. His greatest wish was to marry the daughter of a powerful emperor. This princess was known far and wide for her beauty, but her heart was perhaps a bit harder to win. Our prince, deeply in love, decided to send her two gifts he held most dear. The first was a rose. But not just any rose. This one was incredibly special. It bloomed only once every 100 years, and its fragrance was so magical it could make anyone who smelled it forget all their sorrows. The second gift was a nightingale. This wasn't a mechanical bird, but a real living creature whose song was the most beautiful music in the entire world. The prince packed these treasures carefully, believing they were gifts worthy of a true princess. The presents arrived at the emperor's grand palace. The princess, surrounded by her ladies-in-waiting, opened the silver chests. She saw the delicate rose. "Oh, it's real," she said with a little frown. Then she heard the nightingale sing its heavenly melody. "How lovely," she remarked, "but it's just a simple bird." She turned up her nose. "I prefer things that are more splendid, more artificial." She found the gifts too plain, too natural for her taste. And so, without even meeting him, she refused the kind-hearted prince. The prince was heartbroken. How could she reject gifts that came straight from the heart, treasures of nature itself? But he wasn't one to give up easily. If she couldn't appreciate his true self, perhaps she needed to learn a lesson. So he hatched a plan. He smeared dirt on his face, put on some old ragged clothes, and went to the emperor's palace, disguising himself as a common sweat. He asked for a job, and since no one recognized the handsome prince beneath the grime, they gave him a small hut near the pigsties and put him in charge of the royal pigs. Life as a swineherd was a far cry from his princely duties, but he was patient. He spent his days tending to the pigs, and in his spare time, he put his clever mind to work. Using his skill, he crafted a marvelous little pot. This wasn't just any cooking pot. It had tiny bells all around its rim, and when the water inside boiled, the bells would tinkle and play a cheerful old tune. But that wasn't its most amazing feature. If you held your finger over the steam rising from the pot, you could instantly smell every single dish being cooked in every kitchen throughout the entire city, from the richest banquet to the humblest cottage meal. News of this extraordinary pot quickly spread through the palace. The princess, who was often bored, heard the servants whispering about the swineherd's magical creation. Her curiosity was piqued. She and her ladies-in-waiting went down to the pigsties to see it for themselves. The air was filled with the smell of roasting goose from the mayor's house and sweet pastries from the baker's wife. The princess was utterly enchanted. She had to have it. "You there, swineherd," she called out. "How much do you want for that wonderful pot?" The swineherd, hiding a small smile, looked up at her. He thought for a moment and then named his price. "I will give it to you," he said, "for 10 kisses from the princess." The ladies-in-waiting gasped. The princess's face turned bright red. "How dare you?" she exclaimed. "I am the emperor's daughter." She started to walk away in a huff, but the delightful smells from the pot and the charming tune from the bells called her back. "Fine," she whispered to her ladies. "You must stand around us so that no one can see." So the ladies-in-waiting gathered their wide skirts and formed a circle around the princess and the swineherd. The swineherd carefully counted as the princess gave him 10 quick kisses. With the transaction complete, she gleefully took the pot and hurried back to her chambers, thrilled with her new toy. But the swineherd wasn't finished. The very next day, he created something even more spectacular: a magical rattle. When you shook this rattle, it could play every waltz, jig, and polka ever known. The princess, hearing the irresistible music from her window, was once again captivated. She sent a lady-in-waiting to ask the price. 100 kisses from the princess, was the swineherd's reply. "He's gone mad," said the princess, but her feet were already tapping to the music. She couldn't resist. Once again, she went down to the pigsties. Once again, the ladies-in-waiting formed a protective screen. And once again, the swineherd counted each and every kiss. But this time, someone was watching. The emperor, taking an afternoon stroll on his balcony, noticed the strange gathering by the pigsties. Curious, he put on his slippers and went down to investigate. He crept up behind the ladies-in-waiting and peered through a gap just as the swineherd was collecting kiss number 8. The emperor's face turned purple with rage. "What is the meaning of this?" he roared. "My daughter kissing a filthy swineherd for a toy." The ladies-in-waiting scattered, and the princess stood trembling, the rattle falling from her hands. The emperor was furious beyond words. He wouldn't listen to any excuses. "Out!" he shouted. "Both of you, get out of my sight and out of my kingdom. I have no daughter who would behave in such a manner." And so the guards escorted the crying princess and the silent swineherd out of the palace gates and into the pouring rain. The princess wept bitterly. "Oh, why did I refuse that handsome prince?" she sobbed. "Now I'm left with nothing, cast out with this dirty swineherd." As she cried, the swineherd calmly walked over to a nearby fountain. He washed the grime from his face, and as the dirt washed away, his ragged clothes transformed back into his own fine, princely garments. He stood before her, no longer a swineherd, but the very prince she had rejected. The princess gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I have learned something about you," the prince said, his voice filled with sadness, not anger. "I offered you the pure beauty of a rose and the true song of a nightingale, gifts from nature and the heart. You scorned them because they were simple and real. Yet you were willing to trade your dignity, your kisses, for a couple of clever toys. He looked at her one last time. I cannot love a princess who values a mechanical rattle more than a true heart. You do not deserve my love. The princess fell to her knees, begging for forgiveness, realizing the terrible mistake she had made. But the prince simply shook his head, turned his back, and walked away, leaving her alone in the rain outside the kingdom she had lost. And there she stood, having learned a painful but powerful lesson that true worth lies not in fancy trinkets, but in sincerity, kindness, and the simple, beautiful things that life has to offer. What a powerful story, isn't it? It really makes you think about what we value in our own lives. Thank you so much for joining me for this tale. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next story time. Until then, take care and always cherish the real treasures in your life.